The studio fell into a stunned hush as Cher delivered her unfiltered verdict on live television when asked to name one nice thing about Donald Trump. There is nothing nice about him. That single line hit like a thunderclap, sending ripples of nervous laughter through the audience before the weight of her words settled in and transformed the entire interview from casual celebrity chat into a raw, deeply personal reckoning with character leadership and the future of American society. Cher did not attack policies or dive into partisan talking points. Instead, she zeroed in on what she sees as the core of Donald Trump, the way he speaks, the way he shifts narratives with such conviction that both versions sound believable to different crowds at different times, describing it not as charisma, but as something far more troubling, a disconnection from compassion, and an apparent struggle to fully grasp how his words land on real people, affecting families, communities, and the national psyche. The laughter in the studio slowly evaporated as viewers realized this was no comedy bit, but a serious assessment of a former president, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Cher pressed further, moving beyond the present moment to speak urgently about younger generations, women, and the long-term consequences she believed certain approaches to leadership could impose on the country's social fabric. Her voice grew more serious. Her tone carried genuine concern, turning what began as late-night entertainment into something resembling a warning that lingered long after the segment ended. Within hours, clips exploded across social media platforms. Some viewers applauded Cher for her honesty and willingness to speak plainly, while others accused her of bias exaggeration and stepping over the line reserved for entertainers. Yet nearly everyone agreed the interview was impossible to ignore, and it sparked immediate reactions, including from Trump himself, who appeared rattled, dismissing her as out of touch while his team tried redirecting focus. But the conversation only intensified as millions debated whether Cher was simply venting personal frustration or articulating concerns many Americans quietly shared but rarely heard voiced so directly on national television. Trump supporters pushed back hard, arguing her comments were emotional rather than evidence-based and typical of late-night shows that reward drama over substance. Critics, however, saw authenticity in her delivery, insisting she spoke without filters, in a moment where silence felt untenable. And that rawness is precisely what made the segment powerful, not because it unified opinions, but because it forced reactions across the spectrum, exposing how profoundly divided Americans remain when viewing the same public figure. For some, Trump embodies strength, confidence, and a necessary disruption of a broken political system. For others, he represents unpredictability, division, and instability. The interview laid that divide bare in real time, with every shared clip sparking new arguments, every comment section turning into a battlefield, and every opinion generating fresh headlines. Yet the most striking element was Cher's deliberate choice. She knew criticism would follow, new headlines would sensationalize it, new supporters and opponents would argue for days. And still she said it with zero hesitation, no apology, no attempt to soften or walk it back, proving in a media age filled with spin and hedging that directness stands out and resonates even when uncomfortable. The video titled Donald Trump Meltdown. After Cher blows the lid off his secrets on live TV, captured the intensity perfectly spreading rapidly because it mirrored the raw public response. Trump followed up with messages calling her out and criticizing the segment, but the discussion continued, trending with pundits analyzing social media users, debating, and late-night hosts referencing it in monologues, turning one honest answer into a larger cultural moment about leadership, accountability, public trust, and the power of plain speaking in an era of careful messaging. Cher continued elaborating, describing Trump as someone seemingly detached from empathy, who has difficulty internalizing the human impact of rhetoric. The studio audience's initial amusement gave way to attentive silence as they absorbed a personal evaluation rather than political performance. Cher then pivoted to future implications, speaking at length about risks to coming generations, particularly women and societal stability under styles of governance she views as lacking foresight. Her delivery grew increasingly grave, transforming the broadcast into a cautionary address that felt weightier than typical entertainment. Within minutes of airing, social media feeds filled with reaction videos, praise for courage, accusations of overreach, and widespread acknowledgement that ignoring it was not an option. The explosion online centered on her hypothetical of a major international crisis requiring steady judgment, experience, and measured decisions, asking pointedly how Trump would handle such pressure. The audience chuckled at her illustrative style, but tension simmered beneath because this was no routine joke. It was expressed worry. People could sense the interview transcended gossip, becoming integral to broader talks on character, consistency, and whether celebrity voices still matter when they cut through noise. Trump backers rallied online, labeling it partisan entertainment, while detractors amplified the message, deepening the national split. Cher remained silent afterward, letting her statements stand. The debate raged on about whether such moments change minds or merely entrench existing beliefs, with evidence on both sides as conversations stretched for days across platforms and airwaves, highlighting America's enduring polarization around Trump as a figure of either bold reform or dangerous volatility. Cher's plain language without hedging reminded many that authenticity still commands attention, even amid backlash, and the cultural discussion it ignited about empathy and leadership showed no signs of fading as analysts broke down every nuance and ordinary citizens weighed in passionately. The power of that initial refusal to say anything nice reverberated, forcing deeper reflection on what qualities define effective public service in turbulent times, and ensuring the interview became more than fleeting television. It evolved into a mirror for societal rifts that continue shaping discourse well beyond the studio lights, with Trump responding characteristically by attacking the messenger. Yet Cher's observations from personal vantage rather than scripted points lingered because they struck at fundamental questions of trust and reliability in high office, extending the national conversation far longer than anyone anticipated, as millions process the implications for democracy, accountability, and the kind of leaders future generations will inherit. This single segment illustrated how one unvarnished response in a landscape of polished narratives can dominate headlines, fuel arguments, and compel society to confront uncomfortable truths about division and the hunger for genuine, unfiltered perspectives that cut through the usual spin cycle dominating modern media and politics alike. Continuing seamlessly into explorations of specific examples from Trump's public record that Cher alluded to, without naming every instance yet, implying patterns of inconsistency that worry observers across the aisle, from shifting positions on international alliances to domestic rhetoric that polarizes rather than unites. She painted a picture of leadership that prioritizes personal narrative over collective stability, raising alarms about potential crises where quick-tempered responses could escalate rather than resolve tensions. Her warnings about impacts on women and youth delved into policy ripple effects, social dynamics, and cultural signals that she believes undermine progress made over decades, emphasizing the need for leaders who demonstrate empathy and foresight rather than spectacle. The audience sat rapt as she detailed these concerns with clarity and conviction, transitioning the show from entertainment to substantive discourse that viewers later described as both jarring and necessary in an election cycle already fraught with high stakes. The online fallout included detailed threads dissecting her phrasing, fact-checking claims, and personal stories from voters who felt seen or alienated by the exchange, all contributing to a vibrant, if contentious, public square where ideas clash openly, reflecting the healthy yet strained nature of democratic debate in contemporary America. Trump's team attempted damage control through statements and counter-appearances, but the momentum of Cher's words proved difficult to redirect as they tapped into pre-existing anxieties and hopes, depending on one's political lens, ultimately reinforcing that character assessments from unexpected voices can resonate deeply, precisely because they bypass traditional channels and speak directly to lived experiences and observations accumulated over years of watching national leadership unfold. This comprehensive unrolling of concerns without restraint marked a pivotal television moment whose echoes influenced discussions in homes, offices, and online forums for weeks, underscoring the enduring influence of celebrity platforms when wielded for plain truth-telling amid polarized times, and setting the stage for continued examination of leadership qualities essential for navigating complex global and domestic challenges facing the nation today and into the future, as the conversation expanded to include voices from all sides, weighing the merits of direct criticism versus calls for civility in public life, highlighting the delicate balance required to maintain democratic vitality without descending into unproductive acrimony. The full scope of Cher's commentary thus served as both catalyst and reflection of deeper societal currents shaping American politics in this era. The studio atmosphere remained charged as Cher built upon her initial statement, delving deeper into the nuances of what she perceives as Donald Trump's approach to power and responsibility, arguing that he often seeks the authority of leadership while appearing less inclined to embrace the full weight of its obligations. To illustrate, she envisioned high-stakes scenarios involving international crises, demanding composure, strategic depth, and accountability, asking rhetorically how such situations would unfold under his guidance. The audience responded with a mix of laughter and uneasy silence, recognizing the gravity beneath the surface. This was not mere performance, but an expression of authentic apprehension that resonated with segments of the viewing public, sparking immediate and widespread online engagement, where supporters defended Trump as a disruptor, unafraid to challenge establishments, while detractors viewed the critique as validation of long-held worries about stability and temperament. Clips circulated virally, amplifying the divide and prompting Trump to issue responses that further fueled media cycles, with accusations of bias and calls to focus on substantive issues rather than personal attacks. Yet the interview's impact endured because it touched on universal themes of trust, empathy, and the human element in politics. Cher elaborated at length on the importance of consistent messaging that fosters unity rather than division, highlighting examples from recent years where conflicting statements created confusion among allies and citizens alike. She stressed the role of compassion in effective governance, suggesting leaders must connect with diverse populations, understanding their struggles, aspirations, and fears rather than prioritizing spectacle or personal branding. Her urgent tone when addressing future generations, and particularly women's issues, underscored beliefs about potential regressions in social progress, economic equity, and cultural inclusivity, painting a vivid picture of long-term societal consequences. If certain patterns persist, the discussion transcended the immediate context, becoming part of ongoing national dialogues about what qualities define strong leadership in an increasingly complex world, with pundits later dissecting the segment frame by frame, and social media users sharing personal reflections that added layers to the collective conversation. Cher knew full well the backlash she would face from certain quarters, including accusations of Hollywood elitism or partisan grandstanding, but her decision to speak plainly without filters exemplified the kind of directness many crave in public discourse, even when it makes audiences uncomfortable. This authenticity distinguished the moment from typical soundbite-driven exchanges, proving that unscripted honesty can still command attention and provoke thought in a saturated media environment where spin often dominates. The aftermath saw increased engagement across platforms, with debates ranging from policy specifics to broader philosophical questions about character and leadership. Trump supporters rallied, emphasizing his achievements and outsider status as counterpoints, while critics amplified Cher's points, integrating them into larger narratives about accountability and public service. The interview thus functioned as a cultural Rorschach test, revealing how differently Americans interpret the same events and figures depending on their values, experiences, and information sources, extending its influence far beyond the broadcast, as it prompted self-reflection among viewers and commentators alike on the state of political trust and the role of celebrity voices in shaping opinion without claiming to change minds overnight. It undeniably contributed to a heightened awareness of underlying tensions and the need for more nuanced conversations that bridge rather than widen divides. Cher's continued elaboration on disconnection from empathy and difficulties in anticipating word impacts provided ample material for analysis, with examples drawn from public records, speeches, and interactions that illustrated her points without requiring exhaustive listing. The segment's power lay in its ability to humanize abstract political debates, making them relatable and emotionally resonant for everyday audiences who tuned in, expecting entertainment but received food for thought. Instead, as the hours turned to days, the story evolved, incorporating reactions from various stakeholders, including political analysts, former officials, and ordinary citizens, all adding depth to the discourse and ensuring the topic remained relevant in ongoing election-related coverage. The broader implications touched on media responsibility, freedom of expression, and the marketplace of ideas, where controversial statements, whether from politicians or entertainers, test societal resilience and capacity for civil disagreement. Ultimately, Cher's contribution highlighted the value of plain speaking in fostering genuine engagement, even amid disagreement, serving as a reminder that in democracy, robust debate strengthened by diverse perspectives remains essential for progress, and that moments like this, however polarizing, play a vital role in keeping the national conversation alive, dynamic, and responsive to citizen concerns across the spectrum. This extended reflection on leadership character and societal impacts formed the backbone of a television event whose ripples continued influencing public sentiment and media narratives for an extended period, demonstrating the lasting potency of a single candid response delivered with conviction on a national stage. Building further on the foundation laid in her opening remarks, Cher expanded her analysis into detailed considerations of accountability and leadership, contrasting what she views as Trump's style with ideals of steady, responsible governance that prioritizes evidence-based decisions over impulsive reactions. She revisited the theme of narrative flexibility, pointing to instances where positions seem to adapt fluidly according to context, audience, or advantage, describing this as potentially destabilizing in roles requiring predictability and trust from both domestic and international partners. The audience listened intently as she outlined potential ramifications for national security, economic stability, and social cohesion, particularly emphasizing vulnerabilities for younger demographics and women who she believes stand to face unique challenges under frameworks lacking sufficient empathy or forward thinking. Her voice conveyed not anger but earnest worry, transforming the interview into a platform for substantive reflection rather than confrontation. As clips proliferated, online reactions poured in from across the political landscape, with Trump allies framing the comments as out of touch, elitism disconnected from the realities of governance and everyday American struggles, while admirers of Cher's candor saw it as a necessary counterbalance to dominant narratives pushing for deeper scrutiny of public figures. The resulting debates enriched public discourse by surfacing varied viewpoints on character versus competence, consistency versus adaptability, and personal style versus institutional norms, ensuring the conversation extended well beyond entertainment value into meaningful examinations of democratic values and leadership expectations in the 21st century. Cher refrained from post-interview commentary, allowing her on-air statements to resonate on their own merits, which only amplified their reach as people projected their own experiences and beliefs onto the exchange, fostering a rich tapestry of interpretations and counterinterpretations that mirrored America's multifaceted political culture. The segment's title, referencing a Trump meltdown, captured attention by evoking drama, but the substance lay in its exploration of deeper issues like public trust, the weight of words, and the long shadow of leadership decisions on future generations. Analysts noted how such moments reveal fault lines in societal cohesion, while also providing opportunities for dialogue that could bridge gaps if approached with openness rather than defensiveness. Trump's responses followed familiar patterns of counterattack and redirection, yet they too became part of the larger story, illustrating the cyclical nature of modern political communication, where criticism begets response and the cycle sustains media interest and public engagement. Cher's emphasis on speaking from observation rather than partisan scripts lent credibility in the eyes of many, even those who disagreed, prompting them to reconsider aspects of leadership evaluation beyond surface-level achievements or rhetoric. This capacity to provoke thought without demanding universal agreement underscored the interview's success as a cultural artifact, one that encapsulated contemporary tensions while encouraging ongoing reflection on what constitutes effective stewardship of public office in times of rapid change and deep division. As days passed, references to the exchange appeared in diverse outlets, from opinion columns to casual discussions, reinforcing its status as a noteworthy event in the election season narrative. Ultimately, the power derived from its unvarnished quality in an age of calculated messaging, proving that authenticity, whether praised or critiqued, retains the ability to captivate and influence public conversation on matters of vital importance to the nation's trajectory and collective identity. The full arc of the interview thus served not only as immediate spectacle, but as the enduring prompt for examining core principles of governance, empathy, and responsibility that define American political life at its best and most challenging. The studio atmosphere remained thick with anticipation as Cher pressed onward without missing a beat, expanding her critique into the practical realities of leadership under pressure. Where she argued Donald Trump often projects an image of strength through bold declarations, yet falters when it comes to the consistent follow-through and empathetic calibration required in moments of true national consequence, she recounted patterns observed over years of public life where statements on everything from economic plans to international alliances appeared adaptable in ways that create uncertainty among allies and confusion among citizens, painting a portrait of a leader more attuned to personal branding and immediate audience reactions than to the steady hand needed for long-term governance. The audience sat captivated, some nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably as her words challenged preconceptions and forced reconsideration of what effective presidency demands in an era of global interdependence and domestic polarization. Cher then transitioned smoothly into discussions of compassion's role, emphasizing how a disconnect from understanding the human cost of rhetoric can erode public trust over time, leading to deeper societal fractures that affect families, workers, and communities striving for stability. She spoke passionately about the experiences of women navigating policy landscapes that she believes could be shaped by attitudes lacking sufficient regard for equity and inclusion, warning that future generations might inherit heightened challenges if empathy remains sidelined in favor of confrontational styles. Her tone stayed measured yet urgent, underscoring that these were not abstract theories but observable trends with tangible impacts on everything from healthcare access to educational opportunities and economic security for millions. The conversation had by now fully evolved beyond celebrity opinion into a broader meditation on American values, leadership ethics, and the kind of character that sustains democratic institutions through turbulent times. Clips from the interview continued dominating social media timelines, with users dissecting every phrase, sharing personal anecdotes, and engaging in heated exchanges that reflected the country's persistent divisions. Trump supporters countered vigorously, highlighting his business background, outsider status, and perceived successes in challenging entrenched powers, while accusing Cher of elitist bias disconnected from the concerns of working-class voters. Meanwhile, those aligned with her perspective amplified the message, seeing it as a rare instance of unfiltered truth-telling that cut through political noise and resonated with widespread anxieties about unpredictability in high office. The debate fueled countless threads, articles, and water cooler talks, proving once again that one candid television moment possesses the power to dominate national discourse for days on end. Cher knew the personal and professional risks involved in such directness, yet proceeded anyway, demonstrating a commitment to authenticity that many found refreshing, even if they disputed the conclusions. Her refusal to soften the message or issue immediate clarifications only heightened its impact, allowing the raw essence of her observations to linger in public consciousness, prompting reflection on whether interviews like this truly shift opinions or primarily reinforce existing camps, with data from social listening tools showing spikes in both pro- and anti-Trump sentiment. In the aftermath, the segment also reignited conversations about the influence of entertainers in politics, questioning where the line between cultural commentary and electoral interference should be drawn without resolving that tension. It undeniably contributed to a more engaged electorate, as people from all backgrounds weighed in on themes of accountability, transparency, and the human elements that define trustworthy leadership, extending the dialogue into late-night monologues, morning show panels, and family dinner tables across the nation. Trump responded in characteristic fashion through social posts and surrogate statements, dismissing the critique as entertainment industry grandstanding while redirecting attention to policy achievements and opponent shortcomings. But the words from Cher carried forward because they stemmed from what she framed as personal observation accumulated over decades rather than partisan scripting.